Not just cartoons. We're Nicktoons. Not just cartoons.
We're Nicktoons.
Not just cartoons.
We're Nicktoons.
Not just cartoons.
We're Nicktoons.
Rounding out this theme's month of videos and podcasts dedicated to the original Nicktoons is hands down the most groundbreaking and influential of them all, the Ren and Stimpy Show. Created by John Kricfalusi, the show is about a neurotic and hot-tempered chihuahua named Ren and a dumb yet loyal cat named Stimpy, going through some insane and erratic adventures. The Ren and Stimpy Show was a massive hit for people of all ages, airing on both Nickelodeon and MTV. It will pave the way for animators to focus on making creator-driven cartoons, as opposed to cartoons that focus on toys that were the norm back in the 80s. It also pushed the boundaries on what to present on a cartoon for kids. On the surface, the Ren and Stimpy Show presents gross close-ups on characters' faces, and feature a lot of toilet humor and bodily functions from burps, farts, boogers, and coughing up hairballs. But the true underlying genius of the Ren and Stimpy Show was that it was able to present incredibly detailed animation with superb voice acting, a dark undertone, over-the-top antics, a memorable soundtrack, and shorts reminiscent of something that you would see in the 1950s. With that said, it's time to discuss about my personal favorite episodes of the series. Now keep in mind, if you feel there was an episode that either should or shouldn't have been on the list, or if you think that an episode should have been ranked higher or lower, just remember that this is my opinion. Let's begin. Number 10. A Yard Too Far. We're starting things off with an episode with a simple yet classic premise. Ren and Stimpy are wandering in the streets starving when they pick up a wonderful aroma of a plate of hog jows near a windowsill. Ren and Stimpy want to get their hands on the hog jows, but knowing that it won't be easy, with Ren pointing out the obvious obstacle that usually happens in these situations.
I've seen cartoons like this before. If I set foot in that yard, I'll probably get ripped to shreds by some enormous dog.
But since this is Ren and Stimpy, instead of avoiding a dog, they have to use their clever schemes to overcome a vicious baboon. Ren and Stimpy do all the classic plans. Sneak around without being noticed, dress up as someone else, and have a fake love interest to use as a distraction. This episode was based off of a 1957 Yogi Bear cartoon called Pie Pirates, in which Yogi and Boo Boo have to overcome a dog so they can steal a huckleberry pie from a windowsill. Even Doug and Rugrats would have similar episodes with this plot. In the episode Doug and the Yard of Doom, Doug and Skeeter have to retrieve Patty's wacky whizzer from a vicious dog named Lady. In the episode Barbecue Story, Tommy, Chucky, Phil, and Lil have to retrieve their ball from their yard next door, dealing with a big, vicious, mean dog. The Ren and Stimpy Show takes this premise and makes it more crazy, yet homaging its classic roots, making it stand out more than what the two previous Nicktoons did. However, it's low on this list because the other episodes that'll be featured on later are much better. Number 9. The Great Outdoors. Here's another episode with a simple premise. Ren and Stimpy go on a weekend-long camping trip to rough it out in the wilderness. Again, similar to A Yard Too Far, it takes this premise and makes it even more crazy. Ren eating a meat pill and suffering the consequences of not obeying Stimpy's orders, Ren using gasoline to start a fire, Ren and Stimpy getting bitten by mosquitoes, and so much more. And then there's my favorite scene in this episode. Ren and Stimpy going skinny dipping. At first, Ren is hesitant of shedding his fur to jump in the lake with Stimpy, but Stimpy convinces him that there's no one else to see them. Eventually, Ren takes off his fur and frolics with Stimpy in the water. But then who else would show up but one of the strangest and creepiest characters featured in the series? Old Man Hunger.
Hey, you know who'd like this? Ma! Hey, Ma! Hello, man!
Wow. Number 8. A cartoon, otherwise known as Untamed World. Ren and Stimpy are hosts of a nature show, traveling to the Galapagos Island exploring all the animals that reside there. Each and every single animal showcased bear resemblance to Ren and Stimpy. There's the horn-billed chihuahua, the soft-shelled Stimpy, the needle-billed chihuahua, the croco Stimpy, and more. There's even a 5-toed yak that Stimpy wants to tag, but with very little success after he accidentally aims his tranquilizer at Ren. Based off of Tex Avery's travelogue cartoons, this episode is very creative, showcasing all the different types of animals that Ren and Stimpy can become, while at the same time making nature shows very interesting. Take that, Walt Thornberrys. Later on in the series, the Ren and Stimpy Show did another episode called The Lair of the Lummox. In that episode, Ren and Stimpy search around for a rare species called the lummox, and they learn more about its way of living. While that episode is okay, it's nowhere near as good as a cartoon is. Number 7. Fire Dogs. In this episode, Ren and Stimpy are in the streets hungry when they find a fire station needing to hire Dalmatians. Ren paints Stimpy and himself with Dalmatian paint and approaches the lead firefighter to get the job. He, of course, is completely insane.
I've had it up to here with the likes of you people! Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were a circus midget.
The firefighter is a caricature of animator Ralph Bakshi, whom John Kay worked with around the 80s. Ren and Stimpy make themselves at home at the fire station, but then they have to help take out a fire at a building, save a lady, her baby, and large animals. This episode is full of funny gags. Stimpy sliding up the fire pole, yes, up the fire pole, saving the animals with them getting bigger and heavier, and saving the ugly fat lady with her repulsive close-up appearance. There was supposed to be a sequel to Fire Dogs called Fire Dogs 2 in the original run, but it was delayed until a decade later when it was featured in Ren and Stimpy Adult Party cartoon. That episode is absolutely terrible, and I do not recommend that you check it out. Watch the original instead. Number 6. Stimpy's Fan Club. Ren and Stimpy receive a lot of letters. However, every single letter is for Stimpy, written by his loving fans. Ren becomes saddened that no one else loves him, but Stimpy helps him out by hiring Ren as the president of his fan club, answering all his fan letters. At first, Ren does very well, but as time goes on, he slowly becomes jealous of Stimpy getting all the admiration. He writes nasty comments to some of them, and is even thinking of killing Stimpy in his sleep by wringing his neck with his own 2 hands. He decides not to, thank God. The next day, Ren does receive a fan letter, and well, I'm not going to spoil the ending on who sent it because it's very sweet. Stimpy is a typical dumb cartoon character, but because he's so kind and loyal to Ren, he's beloved by all the kids who both wrote him the letters in the episode, and to all the kids and adults who watch the show in real life. This episode shows on why he's such a popular character. The scene in which Ren talks about wringing Stimpy's neck is a massive standout to how intense envy can affect someone. The bug-out eyes, the black background, the thin, wrinkly hands emphasize it even more. This episode is a fan favorite from season 3. Number 5. An Abe Divided. Speaking of which, here's another fan favorite from season 3. Ren and Stimpy are digging for food in a garbage can when they see an ad for a job at the Lincoln Memorial. They approach the cross-dressing Sergeant Big Bud for the job, and he hires them with the task of cleaning the memorial and watching over the tourists. One of the tourists mentioned about a treasure living inside the president's head, and Ren goes money crazy when hearing about it, closing the tour early. He tries to go up to Lincoln's nose, but he gets stuck. Then he and Stimpy saw the head out and eventually find the treasure. However, they accidentally smash his head to pieces. They have to put the head back together before Sergeant Big Butt discovers on what they did. This is another great episode with amazing gags. The introduction of the sergeants, Stimpy thinking that the Lincoln statue is Santa Claus, trying to fix the missing head with hot dogs and a flaming dumpster, and finally learning on what the golden treasure is, which of course I'm not going to spoil. You have to check it out for yourself. Number 4. Stimpy's Cartoon Show. Now we have our last episode of Season 3 for this list, and it's hands down the best. Stimpy is toiling away making a cartoon for his animation idol Wilbur Cobb. Ren thinks that Stimpy is wasting his time doing it, but in reality Ren is upset because he doesn't know how to make a cartoon. Stimpy suggests jobs for him to do, such as drawing, writing, or even making coffee, but Ren shakes his head. Then Stimpy makes him his producer, and Ren takes full advantage of it by pushing Stimpy harder and harder to finish the cartoon. When he finally completes it, he approaches Wilbur Cobb and surprise, surprise, he's completely insane.
The walls have teeth. Us Italians have to stick together, you know.
When Stimpy finally demonstrates his cartoon, Wilbur is impressed and tells him to continue to work hard, and he'll be where he is at now. This episode was based on the exaggerated experience of the animators working under John Kay during the first 2 seasons of the show, constantly drawing pictures and making sure that they never draw the same face twice, having to draw from scratch if John Kay isn't satisfied with it, eyeing his animators constantly to see if the animation is flowing and not choppy in any scene, and taking weeks or even months to make sure that the colors and lip syncs are up to his standards. The cartoon that Stimpy had been working on for so long is a really crappy cartoon with terrible voice acting and an idiotic storyline. Looking back on this episode, I would be really surprised if the people behind Rocko's Modern Life wasn't inspired of the Wacky Deli from Stimpy's cartoon show. The presentation and results are really similar. While the Wacky Deli episode is a lot more iconic to many classic Nick fans, Stimpy's cartoon show is a great episode as well. It should not be overlooked. Number 3, the Royal Canadian Kilted Yaksman. This is truly a memorable episode. It's the year 1856, and Ren and Stimpy volunteer to partake in a mission to explore the Great Barren Wasteland for the Royal Canadian Kilted Yaksman. Together with their yaks, they travel to the wasteland dealing with many hardships, from being attacked by animals to near starvation. Ren wants to give up, but Stimpy brightens up Ren's mood with the Royal Canadian Kilted Yaksman's national anthem. The moment that still makes this episode unforgettable is the anthem that Ren, Stimpy, and the Yaks sing. The lyrics, the events in the background, the censoring of the word hell, and the singing are done unbelievably well. It's not only one of the best moments in the series, but in Nicktoons history. Number 2, Space Madness. This was the first episode of the series that I watched when I was a mere 5-year-old in 1991, and it's been stuck in my mind ever since. This was also one of the first episodes that the viewers saw that the Ren and Stimpy show was going to be something truly special. In this episode, Ren and Stimpy watch their favorite show, Commander Hoek and Cadet Stimpy, where they take a 6-year off-duty break. Ren starts to experience space madness of doing nothing in the spaceship. Stimpy sends Ren to take a relaxing bath. Ren slowly slips into insanity by eating a bar of soap like an ice cream bar and starting to talk nonsense. Stimpy tries to calm him down, but Ren doesn't listen to him. He even thinks that Stimpy is going crazy as well with space madness, so he tasks him to watch over the history eraser button. Stimpy at first is doing well, but then the announcer of the show tempts him to push the eraser button. Stimpy is pushed so far that he pushes the button and eventually they're erased from existence. There are so many things that I love about this episode. The sci-fi setting, the slow transition from stress to insanity, the random quotes that Ren says while floating in his bath, which I later learned was from a 1949 movie Champion starring Kirk Douglas.
We're not hitchhiking anymore. We're riding.
I got my foot on the ladder. We're not hitchhiking anymore. We're riding.
And then there's the announcer forcing Stimpy to push the history eraser button. This is my personal favorite episode of the series because this was the first episode that I saw as a kid, and I hold sentimental value on. Plus, this was the episode that showcased the diversity of Ren and Stimpy. You could put Ren and Stimpy into any setting, and it would take full advantage of it. They were truly like the Looney Tunes of the 90s. This episode was even listed as number 85 in the top 100 moments of Nicktoons history back in 2007, and it deserves it. However, there is another episode that is debatably better, and come on, you already know what it is. Number 1.
Happy, happy, joy, joy, 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 joy.
Yup, it's Stimpy's invention. What many people consider to be the best episode of the series, and it's true. Every single moment in this episode is done flawlessly. The plot, the setup, the animation, the music, the acting. It's done to the utmost perfection. The plot is about Stimpy testing out his new inventions to Ren, with each of them making Ren incredibly furious. Stimpy decides to create an invention that forces Ren to become happy. Ren does various tasks for Stimpy while laughing maniacally. The remaining scenes are simply too well known that I don't even need to say anything else about it. An interesting thing to note was that a lot of the statements that Stinky Whizzleteak says are actually quotes from the actor Burl Ives from the 1958 movie The Big Country.
If then you ain't the granddaddy of all liars.
Well, if you ain't the mother and father of all liars.
I told you I'd shoot, but you didn't believe me. Why didn't you believe me?
I told you I'd do it. I told you that you wouldn't believe me. Damn your soul! I told you!
According to the book Sick Little Monkeys, the unauthorized Ren and Stimpy story by Thad Komorowski, Stimpy's invention took an entire year to do. John Kay wanted this cartoon to be as perfect as possible. It was delayed for so long, the Nickelodeon announced Stimpy's invention as a lost episode. But it must have been well worth it because people fell in love with this episode. Even still to this day, it has some of the most iconic moments of Nicktoons history. The Happy Happy Joy Joy scene was listed as number 78 in the top 100 Nicktoons moments. Everything about this episode can be summed up in one word: quintessential. When you think of the Ren and Stimpy Show, this is the episode that people bring up first and talk about fondly. You know what? I couldn't agree more.
Happy, happy, joy, joy, happy, happy, joy, joy, happy, happy, joy, joy, happy, happy, joy, happy, happy, joy, joy, happy, happy, joy, joy, happy, 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 joy, joy, joy.